Welcome back, guys. I'm Kevin Zhen, Exeter grad, Yale grad, breakdancer, YouTuber, and today I'm here to review two more of your Common App essays. For context, in the middle of August, I wrote a YouTube post where I mentioned if you'd be comfortable having me workshop and edit your essay for free, since normally we do charge about $100 to $125 for this service, I would be more than happy to provide feedback, commentary in the form of a YouTube video. Now, I do plan on offering this again, so definitely subscribe, like, follow, comment, keep an eye out for posts in the middle of September, October, because I'm really eager and honestly really excited to do this again. Now, out of the dozens of essays that we received, I specifically chose these two essays because I think that they would provide the most benefit and value to the community. The first essay suffers from a few common mistakes, so I definitely want to bring your attention there. Make sure you guys avoid that in your own drafts, whereas the second essay is actually pretty solid. It's a very good essay, and we're going to talk in more detail about how to elevate it from good to great to spectacular. So without further ado, let's dive right in. I am over 10 years younger than all three of my sisters and the only brother. Growing up, all of my sisters were away from home with college or work. The fact that we didn't bond a normal amount never occurred to me because my norm was no bonding. Whenever I described my situation, people would ask questions like, "Are you close with them? How is that possible?" And my personal favorite, "Were you the mistake child?" Behind their open mouths, knit eyebrow frowns, I sensed a feeling of pity that I couldn't understand. In my mind, I was an only child. My sisters were more friends than family, and I was okay with that. My wake-up call ironically came from a classic show from my home state, Texas, Young Sheldon. Watching the show allowed me to empathize with another STEM-talented, education-focused, Southern-raised, and somewhat too proud youngest child with siblings. All within a relatable setting, it masterfully displayed the connections within Sheldon's family, a window into the sibling dynamic I never had. Georgie, Missy, and Sheldon's banter antics and complex yet meaningful relationships inspired me to make an effort to bond with my siblings as well. Now, something that's really cool about this student and what makes him stand out is actually using these little dashes. In fact, my co-founder Jeff's thesis was about whether ChatGPT could copy or create college essays, and we found that the one thing it couldn't replicate was unique flow, word choice, verbiage that only you guys can come up with. Generating smart, one-of-a-kind punctuation, creating these new terms, that's really what helps us stand out. And that's something that I would recommend you guys pay attention to. It's all in the details. The start of high school was synonymous, both unfortunately with the start of online school and fortunately with my introduction to Zoom. That's kind of a wordy, clunky sentence. After seeing some of my friends for the first time in almost 6 months, I also saw potential in video conferencing as a tool to connect people. With my family also becoming experienced with the app for their work, I took an opportunity to reach out, organizing the first ever How family Zoom call. I thought I knew my sisters well enough to understand their lives. Now, here is the very first beginning of a solution. We definitely see some demonstrated proactivity, but honestly, we've talked a lot about the problem-solution ratio on this channel, which is basically when students spend way too much of their essays talking about things that happen to them and not enough time talking about the solution, which is them making things happen. In this particular case, we see about 2 paragraphs of problem before we start seeing some solution. So I do wish this was a bit shorter, at least 50 words shorter, maybe even 75 or 100 words shorter, because I want to get to the part where this student is talking about using Zoom to connect with family. And I think that is the most compelling part. That's what's going to get you accepted into college, right? How you connect with others, how you start to bridge these gaps. However, I was lost within the first few minutes. Updates about new apartments, work projects, and relationships swirled around in the virtual Zoom, all of which seemed to make nothing less than perfect sense to them, but not to me. Now, moving on, we see another problem, which is very common. In fact, this is a structure that we recommend. We call it the double problem solution template. It's basically where you have an initial problem, then the student showcases some demonstrated selflessness, proactivity, curiosity, and then there's a setback, there's another problem. And it's good to include that too, because this gives you an opportunity to showcase your perseverance in the face of obstacles. The next problem starts with, I had never known or frankly cared enough about these people to truly get to know them. While they congratulated or comforted each other on new additions to previous stories, I was stuck playing the catch-up game, piecing together the bits I heard or asking them to explain. My stories confused them as well. We had gone through different conditions as teenagers. Trying to meet them at their present was pointless. Our timelines were fundamentally different. I think that this is a bit too much problem at this point. I would say that this is a third distinct problem. Rather than just talking about like, oh, I struggled to connect with them, I want to see how this student notices that and immediately starts figuring out ways to bond with his family. Pivoting, I tried meeting them in the past. I shared stories about our parents, neighborhood, house, our origins. Here, we found common ground, especially over small details, like how small our elementary school's gym was, or which pillowcases were the softest. We were finally able to collectively bond where we were similar instead of highlighting our gap with where we were different. As we end the call, we say goodbye with one thing we learned about everyone else. Lou, I hope your new job goes well. Di, good luck with your new apartment. And Rosie, have a great wedding. I like this part. It's pretty cute. It does show that this student was listening, is very caring, and does a nice job empathizing with others. Closing my computer after the call, however, I feel incredibly guilty. Those events were life-changing for them, but I had no idea until a few minutes ago. I was connected by blood to these people, yet I never before had the decency to truly take our relationships seriously. Now, over 2 years later, we are more of a family. The calls have loosened from weekly to bi-weekly to sporadically, but my understanding of them is much deeper, as is their understanding of me. I now realize the crucial roles they play in my life, providing support emotionally and mentally, and sometimes financially. I also now realize their individuality. While I had thought of them as a unit before, our interactions have let me learn more about each as a person. Lucy is driven and fierce. Rosie is our resident free spirit. Daisy is a #dogmom. Our journey together has taught me the value of connecting with others, whether it be keeping old relationships alive or actively finding new ones. As I start college, I am proud to say I have 3 more people I can rely on, people I consider more family than friends. One of the problems most students struggle with is actually the ending, and I really love these last 1 or 2 lines. I think that the ending is really cohesive. I really love the whether or. That's a very effective formula that you guys can utilize and kind of borrow as a template in order to come up with really strong conclusions. And you always want to make sure your last line it just ends strong. It's kind of like the last chord in a song, you know? A last sentence that kind of simmers in the reader's mind, something that they think about again and again, something they come back to. So you really want that to be a sentence that resonates with the admission officer, with your reader. The biggest problem with this essay is that there is not enough solution. Basically, all we get is that this student is figuring out a way to connect with his sisters. What I'm going to do next is highlight the solution in green. And I really want you guys to pay attention and make sure that at least 50% of your essay is about you making things happen. Ultimately, you are the main character. You are the protagonist. That's what's gonna get you into college. Demonstrated proof of you making a change in your family, in your clubs, in your community, in your school. What matters is you making things happen, you showing your contribution, because that's ultimately what's going to get you into college, right? They want to know how you contribute to a college campus, to a new community. And the best way to understand that is by looking at your past, your previous contributions. All right, I have completely zoomed out from this essay, and as we can see, the solution is quite sparse. Really, if I was being quite critical, I think we see maybe at most 4 or 5 sentences of solution. And that, my friends, is a really, really big problem. We might think that this reflection and insight is part of our solution. It demonstrates personal growth. But here at Elevated, we actually kind of count that as your insight or your reflection. So we wouldn't really call that solution because it's not tangible, actionable proof of contributions that you've made. My professional recommendation at this point for this student would be to actually add another example of how you connect with others. Not in your family, but actually in your club, in your community, in a completely different context. I also want to see a little bit more intellectual curiosity. Now, revisiting the VSPICE rubric, which are the 6 criteria that we recommend every single student hits across all of their essays. You don't need to hit all of these notes in your Common App essay, but you need to hit them in all of your essays. We have another video about it if you want to check it out. It's really important to showcase intellectual curiosity, vulnerability, selflessness, perseverance. Right now, we definitely see vulnerability, but I don't think we really see enough intellectual curiosity. I'm really drawn to this last line, the value of connecting with others, whether it be keeping old relationships alive or actively finding new ones. And that makes me wonder, does this student have another moment, another example of them actively seeking out new friendships in a different context? I think that actually writing one paragraph about that will improve the score of this essay by at least 1 point. Right now, I would rate the essay at a solid 6, which honestly might be good enough to get into some top 20 schools. But we really do want to get it to a comfortable 8. An 8 out of 10 in our book is top 5% in the world. A 9 or 10 out of 10 essay is true cream of the crop. We'll talk a little bit about that in the next Common App. But before we talk about that, let's just pause for a quick break. I hope you guys enjoyed that little clip. When I'm not editing essays or teaching classes on Zoom, I'm usually spinning on my head or whipping out flares and windmills. But without further ado, let's jump into Common App essay number 2. You are definitely going to want to stick to the end, because that's where I rewrite one of the final paragraphs and show you how to take a good essay and transform it into a truly spectacular one. Also, just one last thing before we continue, but if you are looking for a professional review of any essay, could be an MBA essay, a transfer application essay, Common App supplemental high school application essay, then feel free to visit www.elevated.school/editmyessay. You can upload your draft there and we'll return it back to you with detailed commentary, feedback, line-by-line edits within 2 or 3 business days. Okay, my friends, the second Common App essay that we're going to review is about teaching and dystopias. So, what does dystopia mean? My ears hear the words, but my mind can't process them. The silence from the 20-person Zoom is deafening. As my cheeks turn a rosy hue on screen, I rack my brain for a reasonable answer to the question, or at least an escape from the impending, humiliating, eternal virtual shame. I love that voice. I love the use of these adjectives here. Really helps lend credence to a sentence that only this student could have produced. The previous questions have been so simple. Why was this one so hard? Now, to me, this is also a very relatable situation. So the writer has definitely succeeded in building a rapport with the reader. It was my first program as a member of TST, a group that aimed to educate and empower kids in the city. Now, specifics here would help. I know a lot of admission officers do get a bit annoyed when we don't spell out acronyms and we just assume that they know what TST means. Or even when you say in the city. What city is this? Is this New York? Is this LA? Is this an international city? Those details would definitely help. Being a newcomer, I was eager to prove my abilities and volunteered to lead the program. How bad could it be? I told myself, I got this. I did not, in fact, got this. I'm not sure this is as necessary. It depends on how much voice the student wants to maintain or keep. Now, for me personally, I'm quite ruthless with the problem, and I do want to trim some of this so we get to the solution faster. Here we see solution in the next paragraph. Panicking, I played to my strengths. Recalling the divide and conquer strategy from math, I break dystopia into its roots. Restrictive, futuristic, dark, etc. and explain each one. Then, I tie each part together for the final definition. Dystopia novels depict futuristic, restrictive societies focusing on dark themes such as oppressive governments and resource scarcity. Potentially, we could get rid of this sentence and instead we could add something even more insightful or impactful later on in the essay. A brief, excruciating lag pause. Finally, a wave of head nods rolls across my screen, followed by a chorus of thank yous and mms. He could have just said, then the students got it. But the way that this student shows instead of telling is very effective. Really great verbs like roll, and then also using these quotes are very powerful as well. Relief washes over me. Unfortunately, that's a little bit cliche, saying like a wave of relief washed over me as I sit back and enjoy the rest of the program. I was done with my duty. However, I wasn't done with teaching. Later, reflecting on the experience, I realized there was an art in this technique, splitting large concepts into the fundamentals and then stitching those back together for the bigger picture. Stimulated by my initial success, I began seeking opportunities to both apply old teaching techniques and learn new ones. It could be good to include some specifics here. So I would say old teaching techniques like learn new ones such as, and again, I think we can remove this sentence, shorten or remove this definition, cut this out too. The student, of course, doesn't have to accept all of these changes, but maybe even just 1 or 2. This will give us some more precious time and words in order to talk more about the solution and reflection later on. Now this next sentence, instead of saying some of these opportunities are in TST, I would just say at TST, I continue to lead programs. We can get rid of this as well. From single day online arts and crafts programs to multi-month courses in finance to my favorite, Dungeons and Dragons game night. This is a great use of specific detail. TST has allowed me to influence kids in my community. Again, which community is this? I wonder, is this like Seattle, Miami, Asian American community? Is this Hispanic community? Those little adjectives really matter once you start compounding and adding them together. One of my proudest accomplishments is leading the robotics task force. Repurposing old EV3 Lego kits, I combined my coding knowledge and built instructions to create an entirely new program, currently scheduled for the summer of 2024. The wows, reallys, and the best, ooh, I get it nows, are some of the most rewarding praise I've ever received, and fuel my commitment to producing the best quality programs possible. This is an awesome detail. I don't really think we need to say like, oh, it's scheduled for this. If we got rid of all these little sentences here, you add them up, that's like 50 to 100 words that you can add to this next section where now the student is talking about their contributions in a different setting. So this is exactly what I suggested for Common App 1. Other opportunities include my teaching assistant position at Art of Problem Solving Frisco. Some admission officers might not know what that is, so we do have to spell these out. Having grown up using AOPS resources for math competitions, I was incredibly grateful to give back by sharing my expertise with younger competitors. Teaching these smart, motivated, hardworking students is uniquely rewarding. By working with them on problems, I learn how they learn and tailor my teaching style to their needs. This would be a great place to include an example. Mentioning a specific student here would be incredibly powerful. I noticed that Charlie struggles with high-level, intangible concepts, so I broke this down with really unique examples and then offering an example of that example. Using interesting punctuation will definitely help your writing and flow stand out, but use them properly though. After a few sessions, I only need to explain new ideas once. The students can retain and apply the idea to the next problem like they've done it a million times before. Their eagerness to learn and pure joy for problem solving taught me more about communication than any of my hours preparing talks on symmetry or the Pythagorean theorem ever could. This is also good specifics. Moving on to the conclusion. As you can see, we have 2 paragraphs, but I would actually recommend having a shorter 1-paragraph conclusion. Sometimes it can even just be 50 words or 75 words, and I think that impact solution is more important than conclusion or reflection. Teaching isn't just an integral part of education. It's an integral part of who I am. For the past 4 years, my experiences with teaching have taught me many important skills, ranging from how to empathize with others' thought processes to what kind of candy 8-year-olds like the most. Sour Patch, especially the blue ones. This is actually one of the best details in the essay so far. Most importantly though, they have taught me the gravity of spreading knowledge. The people I teach plan to apply the topics they learn elsewhere in life. So my responsibility as an educator is to impart those ideas as well. This could be a little more insightful. The reward? Nice question though. I have the privilege to positively impact their lives. Their victories become my victories because they are a fruit of my labor as well. I'll take this mindset with me to college. That doesn't need to be said. As a student, my success is indicative of the effort from my professors, friends, and classmates. I owe it to them to try my best and push through. As an educator, I hope to find more opportunities in college to continue to practice my passion. The relationships I make and the successes I earn will motivate me to remember why I do what I do, to inspire and be inspired by others. I am impressed. I really enjoyed this essay. It's good enough to get into an Ivy League school with the right statistics. Now, I did think that the conclusion, the reflection, was a bit trite. This idea of like, okay, I'm inspired when I teach others, I get inspired when I learn, that's a little cliche. So we are going to talk about how to really upgrade this. And one of my biggest suggestions is to utilize the full circle ending. Tie it back to the beginning. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, I'm gonna share my edited conclusion and talk about how to connect the beginning where the student mentions the dystopia with the ending. So we kind of have this full circle effect. Now here is what I wrote. My definition of a dystopia is a society where students are afraid to ask the simple questions. A society where a quality education and curiosity is punished, not cherished. In a world where book bans are becoming more prevalent and economic and educational inequality are on the rise, I fear that our world is inching closer to a modern dystopia. Yet, this is exactly what I seek to combat. Armed with a degree in my hand, I don't just seek a better education for myself, but the ability to utilize this education so that we can all research the topics that our inquisitive minds lead us to, whether that's robotics, Greco-Roman history, or how to become a better teacher and student too. This is one of the most important things I'm gonna say on the channel. The reason that this conclusion is so effective is not necessarily because it's written very well. It's actually not written all that well. It's because it connects to this overall theme of the dystopia, education, teaching, inspiration. We need to make sure that we kind of tie it all up in a nice ribbon and bow. This is probably the hardest thing that I see students struggle with. It is incredibly difficult. So if you're struggling with a nice conclusion, just feel free to email me, visit our website, because it is hard. This is not simple at all. Just keep in mind, what are the 2 most important keywords and themes that you want your reader to walk away with after they have finished assessing your application? Make sure that you're really hammering those notes so the admissions reader knows what you're trying to emphasize. Alrighty friends, that is it for today. Thank you so much for giving me this blessed opportunity to evaluate your work. I will be writing another post. Keep an eye out for that. If you found even an iota of wisdom or value in this video, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel. It has been an honor to be able to help you guys to be part of your journey. And our mission here is to just make a small difference in your guys' lives as you guys apply to college and beyond. Take it easy, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Bye.